a replay of our Everesting Challenge presentation. Tonight we're welcoming Sean Gardner, who is the current World Everesting record holder. Sean is a former Power Up Cycling coaching client and a member of the St. Louis-based Gateway Devo Cycling Club. He's the first person to do the Everest Challenge in under 7 hours. And he's here to tell us about his experience and what it takes to do the Everest Challenge under 7 hours. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, just either talk up or put it in the chat, and Sean will address them. Sean, so it's all yours. Let me pull up the...
Hey everyone. Note, Jim, please push record. So we're recording this session.
I'll do it. Thank you.
So yeah, I think, my name is Sean Gardner. Currently have the Everest world record. As of now, I guess, I think there's a couple big names that are going for it pretty soon. So we'll see how that goes. But I guess a little background on Everest if you're not familiar with it. So the elevation of Mount Everest is 29,000 feet and 29 feet. I think you need to update those slides, Jim. National Geographic came out and it's 3 feet taller this year.
That's right.
So
I saw that.
I guess I'm gonna have to go for the Everest again. The competition incorporates it's a single bike ride. You just do repeats of the hill until you accumulate 29,000 feet of elevation gain during your ride. So you got to do the same hill. I guess no walking. You got to ride up and down. I think there's a running competition, but I did the cycling one. The official results are taken through the Strava data, which I think is a pretty universal website that people can access. So that was a pretty key feature in it. So and I guess at the bottom of the slide there, you can see the website that the organization that puts it on is Hell's 500 is what they're called, and that's their website. I don't know how many people have gone for it, but definitely many thousands of people. I think I saw one statistic that Strava put up during the year 2020. I think it was a 400% increase in the people that have gone for the Everesting Challenge. So it definitely became a lot more popular this year with coronavirus and everyone being socially distanced. So it was a kind of a cool way for people to use their competitive spirit while still staying socially distant. So I guess a little background on myself. I started out, as a kid. I guess I was kind of an athletic kid, did all the primary American sports, all the ball sports. Was never too good at them, didn't have much of a hand-eye coordination. So I think high school, middle school, I kind of found track and field. So going into college, I wasn't really fast enough I went to Virginia Tech, so I wasn't fast enough for like a D1 track and field school. So kind of transitioned into triathlon. I wouldn't say I really had trained for a triathlon before college, but I'd ridden a bike and I had done the local swim team. So I kind of found triathlon in college and it was super fun. And then that kind of naturally led to me joining the cycling team in college. Just I was doing some of the local group rides, and some of the cyclists, I guess, convinced me to try some cycling races, and I was hooked from the first one. So, I guess I kind of progressed through the collegiate ranks. Never really did much of the Cat 5, Cat 4, Cat 3s. I kind of used collegiate cycling to upgrade up to a Cat 2, I guess. And then, yeah, the first year out of college, I joined Gateway Devo cycling team with Jim and Chris and Josh and all the guys. So, yeah, that was a super cool experience. We did all these awesome races, all these cool places. We did primarily the domestic pro road tour calendar with a bunch of regional races mixed in. We did a couple cool international trips to Central America, over to Europe. So some really cool experiences there. I guess results wise, I was able to snag the white jersey at the Redlands. It was a top amateur jersey. I think the first year I tried for it, and we weren't able to hold it that final day. So the next year we came back and we were able to hold it the final day. Shout out to Scott McGill. He really helped me on the circuit race. It was a pretty brutal one, but he came in clutch. Some more podiums, I guess, from my results. Green Mountain Stage Race, probably one of my favorite races up in Vermont. Always a cool vibe. Just it's always like September, I think it is. So it's super beautiful up there. San Dimas Stage Race and Killington Stage Race, both super cool races. Got some results there. So yeah, I was on Gateway for 3 years, and then currently my team is CS Velo, based out of Pennsylvania, with riders kind of all across from the United States. I guess planning to do the PRT calendar in 2020, but yeah, it didn't really work out. Yeah, who knows what racing will look like in 2021, but yeah, kind of keeping it flexible. Yeah, so I guess training and preparation up to this Everesting. Honestly, it was more of a kind of a last second decision. I had kind of heard about the competition all summer long. I think kind of earlier April, May timeframe, some big names had put up some times, like Berto Contador, Phil Guyman, Lachlan Morton had gone for it. But yeah, it never really crossed my mind to actually do the competition. I was just like, oh yeah, that was cool. I see those guys doing it. And then a couple of my teammates went for it, probably midsummer time frame, and that kind of sparked the fire. Kind of saw that they were able to complete it, and I was like, oh yeah, I think that could be a cool thing to go for. We were just doing a bunch of Swift racing at that time period, so not really much of a virtual racer, so didn't really have any goals necessarily. So this was a cool thing to work up towards. So yeah, I guess it was a couple months out, I decided to go for it. And I guess unintentionally, I had been training for it all summer. I was really just doing base miles all summer, just kind of staying ready in case racing season started up again. But yeah, base miles is really all you need to do for this Everesting challenge, because you're doing tempo all day. So yeah, really the only specific training I did for it was this, I guess if you could call it a training camp, a staycation if you want to. It's kind of 2 weeks of some really big miles. It was probably like 500 to 600 miles maybe, or like 30-hour weeks of, it was really just a lot of sweet spot and tempo work, and not even necessarily structured tempo work, but yeah, really just head out there and kind of crush myself. And I was training in Richmond, Virginia, so there's not really any climbs around, and it's maybe a 45-second climb is the biggest thing you'll get, so nothing substantial. So yeah, I wasn't really climbing in preparation for this event, even though I'm gonna be climbing a lot during the Everesting. And yeah, not overly structured. I kind of kept it fun. I've always, I think as Jim knows, I've always really enjoyed the sweet spot tempo work. And, you know, I think it's kind of a rewarding training. You're really getting a lot of KJ work, and just you know, you really feel good afterwards. You know, a lot of it might not be super good for structured like racing and everything, but yeah, for this Everesting event, you know, you're not necessarily going to be sprinting out of corners or doing any high end work. So yeah, I kind of knew that this was just the power zone that I was going to have to do. So yeah, I was really ramping up the TSS and the fitness. All right, so equipment and nutrition. Yeah,
Sean,
this.
before you go on, let's back up.
Yeah.
A little bit. Um, so, I mean, you've always been a good climber. So even though you didn't do a lot of climbing in preparation for this, um, you know, like give folks some idea of what your watts per kilo are, like your 20-minute watts per kilo.
Yeah. So, well, I guess kind of going back to when I first started cycling at Virginia Tech, you know, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. So, you know, when I was first getting into bike riding, you know, uncompetitively, you know, I didn't really have like, I had no idea what a climber was. I didn't know if I was a climber. You know, I didn't really understand all this watts per kilo stuff. And then, yeah, when I went to school out in the mountains of Virginia, where Virginia Tech is, you know, I kind of just found myself um, going faster than people up hills without, you know, necessarily trying harder for me. So, yeah, I guess maybe I'm more naturally of a climber. Maybe it's my running background. I'm a lighter weight naturally. But yeah, so for this effort, the watts I put out for Everesting, it was 5 watts per kilogram for 7 hours, just shy of 5 watts per kilogram. So yeah, I guess my 20-minute FTP is right around 6 watts per kilogram. So yeah, I guess watts per kilogram is definitely my strength. You know, maybe not the most raw watts as some of the bigger guys, but yeah, I think fairly high watts per kilogram. Yeah, so I guess for yeah, the equipment wise, going for this Everest, certainly didn't help with my watts per kilogram. I kind of just used my standard road bike. You know, a lot of other people doing this competition are, you know, making all these weird modifications to the bike. The guy that had the record before me, he cut off his handlebars. You know, he took off one of his chain rings. He took off a lot of his cassette, so he only had like 3 cogs on his cassette. You know, getting all this fancy stuff. I actually only used my Cannondale Super 6 Evo, which in its own right, it's a very, like, I think it might be the lightest UCI legal bike out there. So it's a super light bike, but yeah, it's not as light as these super modified bikes that everyone's using. So yeah, gearing wise, I used just what came on the bike, 52-36 and then 11-30 out back. Yeah, it was definitely a little over geared for this effort. Probably should have worked that out ahead of time, but yeah, 36-30 is not enough gearing for 15.5% grade for 7 hours. So yeah, maybe it's on another slide, but yeah, I unintentionally ended up standing for 5.5 hours of this event, which yeah, I think I'm definitely a standing climber, but not to that extent. I don't think anyone's to that extent a standing climber. So yeah, at the end of this event, my arms were more sore than my legs just from standing so much. But yeah, I think pro tip to anyone out there doing it, make sure you have enough gearing that you can spin at a comfortable cadence for the full effort. Yeah, so my bike had disc brakes, which I ended up very much wanting throughout the course of the event, just because, I was pushing the limits of my speed. So I was really taking advantage of the descent and going pretty fast down it and trying to save braking towards the end, super late. So I was really slamming on the brakes. And I actually, the first attempt that I ended up going for, I warped the rotors just because, I was braking so hard. And yeah, maybe they were a little worn out beforehand. But yeah, it was pretty scary seeing the rotors like, warp in front of you towards the end. And, they were rubbing a little bit when you'd go back up before they had true back out again. So, yeah, make sure your rotors and brake pads are good to go before you go for this. If you're using brake pad or disc brakes, yeah, and then I guess nutrition wise was a pretty big aspect that I concentrated on this world record attempt. The first time I did my trial run, or I guess it was the American record at that point. I kind of didn't necessarily concentrate on nutrition that much. I kind of just brought a bunch of the food that I'd normally eat on a training ride. So peanut butter jelly sandwiches, Pop Tarts, cookies, kind of just real food that is, I guess, junk food. You could qualify it as, stuff, kind of the stuff that you'd get at a gas station, candy bars, that kind of stuff. But it ended up turning out that this effort was a little too hard to really to get that stuff down. It's just breathing hard, and I'd get this food at the top. As you can see in that picture, I had my parents come out and help me. They'd give me food at the top, and then I'd eat on the descent. So yeah, downing a peanut butter jelly sandwich at 60 miles an hour, trying to breathe hard after 6 hours of riding. Yeah, it was pretty difficult. So getting enough calories in was a little tricky. So yeah, the second time I started out with that kind of stuff, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. But yeah, towards the end, I started really just using gels. I really like the SIS gels. They're pretty easy to get down. There's definitely some gels out there that aren't so easy. So um, yeah, I also incorporated some drink mix this time as well. Scratch Labs makes a super high calorie drink mix. I think it's like 400 calories per bottle, almost like 100 grams of carbs in there. So yeah, there are CS Vella's sponsor. So it was pretty good there. And I think I ended up having, I think, a bottle of that an hour. So that was just a super good way to ingest some calories. Yeah, I guess so. A lot of people caught on. It was almost 900 grams of carbohydrate or sugar. So yeah, I mean, I think I definitely trained my gut to intake that much through all my training that I'd done before this. I try to eat a lot in my training rides. So yeah, I think the average person trying to ingest 900 grams of sugar in 7 hours is probably going to throw up or something. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, definitely eating a lot and trying to replace as much as you can is the goal. I think it was almost 8,000 kJs that I burned. So it's pretty much one for one calories. So 8,000 calories in 7 hours. Yeah, it's going to be impossible to eat that much. So really whatever you can eat, you should.
Sean, do you looking at your numbers post ride, um, do you have any idea like what percentage of the time you were in each training zone?
Yeah, so it was actually very steady. So I was either, this time I really went for right at 310 watts was my goal wattage. So, I was either doing 310 watts is like upper end of my tempo zone. So I was either in tempo or on the downhill I was coasting. So there was pretty much nothing in between any of that. So, I wasn't doing zone 1 or zone 2 or anything over tempo. So, it was either tempo or coast.
And Sean, I have a question for you. So
Yep.
you mentioned that when you're climbing, you are out of the saddle a lot of time. Do you have some percent in mind on how much time you spend out of the saddle versus in the saddle? That's for curiosity.
Yeah, well, maybe if I were to if I had my choice in what I would do, I would probably say maybe 50-50 is what I would prefer to do. This effort ended up being a lot more than that. It was probably like 80 or 90% I was probably standing. It was like 5.5 hours out of however long I was actually going uphill, like 6 hours maybe. So yeah, there was only 30 seconds, 45 seconds every lap that I was able to sit down. So yeah, definitely got a little labored towards the end where, I really wanted to sit down, but it was just too low of a cadence to sit down and I didn't have the gears.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, all right. So I guess a little insight to the ride. I chose this climb. So the first time I ended up doing this, I went to the climb, the steepest climb I could think of. It's Wintergreen Ski Resort out, Western Virginia in the Appalachian Mountains. It ended up being, I think it was like 12 or so percent. And that was just, I ride that road a lot, and it was just the steepest one I could think of. But after I finished that first attempt, I knew that if I wanted to go faster, it was just going to have to be a little steeper because I think just the best bang for your buck, where you're really cutting out as many horizontal miles and just try to get as much vertical gain as you can. And I ended up finding this climb. A friend of mine, Jeremiah Bishop, he recommended this climb. It's out. It's kind of near Harrisonburg, Virginia, Charlottesville, Virginia. Kind of really just a small. It's not even really near a town, to be honest. It's out in the Appalachian Mountains. It's a dead end climb up to the Blue Ridge Parkway. There's like a little neighborhood on top. So it was a super quiet road. Ended up being about 15.5% was the grade. And it was almost perfectly steady the whole time. There's a little pitching in the middle, but yeah, it was pretty steady. It was almost straight as well, which kind of looking for the climb I really wanted, because on the descent, if you're having to brake at all, that's kind of just wasted free speed that you have. So I wanted to make it as straight as possible. So, the actual climb that, I guess the climb that cyclists would do is probably like a 3 or 4 mile climb, but I just chose the steepest section. So I was kind of doing a U-turn in the middle of the climb. So I think the climb was maybe 3/4 of a mile long. So I worked it out. I had to do 52 laps of the climb. And yeah, like I said, 15% average. I think, the max was 22%. Kind of how we touched before, my goal watts were 310 watts. And yeah, I kind of stuck to that pretty much the whole time. The last 2 laps, I started cracking a little bit, but yeah, for the most part, I held pretty much exactly 310 watts, which I think was definitely a good thing to do. The first time I went for this challenge, I think I went out a little too hard. I was up towards like 320, 330 watts, which starting to touch into my threshold zone, which, yeah, for this competition, you definitely don't want to go into threshold. You want to try and stay into tempo and endurance zones. So yeah, 310 watts ended up being a good pace for me. The actual climb was taking me about 7 minutes every time, and then it'd take about a minute to go down. So each lap was about 8 minutes long. And yeah, going up, I kind of, yeah, I would start my, or lap my, I use a hammerhead crew. I'd lap my head unit so I'd know what time I'm at. But yeah, after doing the lap 52 times, I kind of definitely became pretty familiar with each little landmark. So, there's like a little if there's like a mailbox or a driveway, there's like a little bump in the road that I know would be like 3.5 minutes. The mailbox would be at 4 minutes. So I could definitely gauge my effort based on when I would pass these landmarks, and not only on the wattage that I was doing. So yeah, descent, I was booking it pretty fast. It was 60 plus miles an hour every time, which, yeah, I'm definitely not much of a descender, and normally 60 miles an hour scares me, but yeah, this was a pretty quiet road. And after doing it 52 times, I knew exactly where I had to start braking each time. I became very familiar with it. So, yeah, 60 miles an hour sounds pretty fast, and yeah, I guess it is. But I was pretty comfortable at the 60 miles an hour. And yeah, like I think we touched on earlier, over 5 hours of standing, which was a mistake and very unintentional, but yeah, it happened.
It worked. So,
Yeah, I think, to be honest, the standing actually kind of forced me to go harder, because I think it's a little easier to go harder standing, and it's so steep, and standing on the big pitch, I really didn't have the option of going slower. I just would fall over if I went slower. So yeah, I think maybe the standing, in hindsight, maybe helped, but definitely didn't feel good.
so like when you got to lap 45 or maybe lap 48, did you know you were close to doing it under 7 hours?
So, so this 310 watts, I came about that from, I kind of did a trial run on this climb and did a few different wattages, and I kind of did a bunch of back calculations, and so I knew exactly what time and then what wattage I'd have to go up this climb to get the record. So 310 watts was going to be the time that I needed to tie the record, give or take a little bit. So yeah, I was actually on pace all day. And I think I ended up beating the record by like 5 minutes, which, if you look at it, is only a few seconds every lap. So, I'm splitting it, but, depending on when you actually press the split button, it can be a second or two difference. So, I knew it was pretty much on pace the whole day. Yeah, I think I guess I probably realized it with, like 3 or 4 laps to go. I was like, trying to do some mental math in my head while doing 310 watts going uphill after 6 hours of riding. But yeah, I was able to kind of, yeah, definitely not cruise home, but yeah, I was pretty confident I was going to get the record. And to be honest, at that point, that was pretty much my only goal. Like, I didn't really, breaking the 7-hour record was not something that crossed my mind at all. I guess it was kind of a second accomplishment, I guess. But yeah, breaking the world record was really the thing that I was going for. But yeah, to be honest, like, I didn't even know what lap I was on. Like, that whole middle, like, 5 hours was pretty much a blur. Like, I couldn't tell you what happened in the middle there. Like, I guess I rode my bike, but yeah, I definitely lost count in the middle there. Luckily we have our numbers on our computers that help us, but yeah, there's a lot of a blur in the middle there. Yeah, so I guess key takeaways, any advice for anyone looking to go for this? Number one, I would say pacing is key. I guess for most people, I wouldn't recommend going out at 310 watts. I would kind of work out what's doable for you. And I guess obviously for me, like, I've never done a 7 hour time trial, so I had no idea how much I could do for 7 hours. So, however long it's going to take you, most likely you've probably never ridden that long. So, yeah, I think being pretty familiar with how you've been riding and, kind of set a doable goal. Definitely, your first time, don't go out too hard. Definitely make it a conservative power goal. Whether you're using power or perceived exertion, it shouldn't be very hard at the start. Kind of the analogy that I like to use for the mental effort that it took for me. It kind of started out effort wise, similar to like reading a children's book, and then kind of progress to like reading a textbook, and then reading a dictionary, and then reading like a calculus textbook, and then reading like a foreign language high level math textbook. So it just got progressively harder and harder at that same 310 watts. So you definitely want to start out pretty conservative, and those first few hours should be pretty easy. Definitely you're breathing a little bit, but you should be super comfortable and not in the pain cave of those first few hours. Then I guess the second biggest takeaway I can say is nutrition. Regardless of how long you're going to do it for, you're going to be out there for a long time, and you're going to potentially even eat meals. I think a lot of my friends have done it, and they've stopped and had lunch and dinner and breakfast. So depending on how long it takes you, I would recommend bringing plenty of food. Depending on how used to like sports nutrition, you can use gels and whatever drink mix you like. But yeah, I definitely would not try to do the whole thing on gels and drink mix. I would definitely shake it up a little bit. Kind of, I mentioned some real food. I have my favorites. I like Pop-Tarts, peanut butter jellies, cookies, but yeah, I think just trying to have as many options as you can, just because, even after a few hours of one food, no matter how tasty it is, it's going to get old. So you want to try to eat as much as you can. So, if things taste good, it's just going to be a lot easier to eat. Yeah, so I guess the cool aspect of this competition is you get to pick your own hill. So, obviously I was going for the record, so I was trying to get the steepest possible climb so I could get the most bang for my buck, I guess, if you want to say that. So, yeah, that was my goal when I was trying to find the hill, but your goal may be different, whether it be a scenic climb or one climb that maybe you want to become the champion of that climb. I think you can really be creative in what climb you want to do. I think choosing a climb that has a gradient that suits your abilities is pretty important. So, 15.5% is probably going to be too steep for a lot of cyclists out there. I think, this climb that I did is kind of known for cyclists having to walk up the portion that I do. So yeah, definitely, 6-7% is a pretty good gradient that I think a lot of climbs are probably around, Appalachian Mountains, Rocky Mountains, or even if you're not near those mountain ranges, you can choose a shorter climb and just do a lot of laps of that. So, yeah, there's really a lot of flexibility in you choosing which climb you do. But yeah, I would definitely recommend kind of scoping it out ahead of time to make sure it's kind of low traffic and a good climb to do. Support crew. I was able to get my parents to come out and stand on top of a mountain for 7 hours. I guess whoever you can convince to come out and give you food and watch you come by 1,000 times, good on them. So, whether it's your spouse or your girlfriend or boyfriend or some unfortunate soul that you convinced to come out, support crew is pretty important. I guess food wise and nutrition wise, but then I guess I'll, kind of just keeping you mentally in the game, kind of cheering you on, just because it's a lot different than a race. Even though I got the world record, the finish line, there weren't any fans there cheering me on. It was kind of just me. So yeah, definitely having someone out there to keep you company is a good thing to have. It's going to be a long day if you don't. It'll be definitely going to be tough at the end. It's I would definitely say this challenge more of a mental challenge than a physical challenge. Yeah, it's pretty strenuous on the legs, but it's definitely it's kind of different than like a bike race where you're really punching on the pedals and you feel that strain on your muscles. Here it's more of a deep fatigue, and towards the end it's more of just kind of just mentally powering through it, and knowing that you can do it is a pretty key aspect. And then finally making sure you have fun. I think if you're having fun, the motivation will kind of take care of itself. So mountains are usually in pretty beautiful places. So if you can choose a climb that has a cool view at the top, you can kind of make that your goal every time. Stop and take in the view every lap. Bring out some friends. If you're make sure you earn your dinner towards the end. Any of these small things that'll make you more motivated and have fun, I think is a good thing to bring into this challenge, because yeah, it's definitely going to be tough if you don't have fun doing it. So yeah. What else? Yeah. Those are my key takeaways.
I don't know why I just thought of this, but when you said have fun, do you know if you could have music? Do you know if the rules prohibit that? I know from a safety standpoint, it's not probably the smartest thing you could do, but
yeah, I think don't take my word for it. Definitely go check. But yeah, I would probably say that you're allowed to have music. One, I don't know how they enforce that. So, yeah, I definitely think music would be a pretty good thing to have. Keep you motivated the whole time. Yeah, definitely make sure you're safe, just because you're probably gonna be going fast on the ascent, and yeah, they're open roads. So, being cognizant of vehicles out there. But yeah, music would definitely be a good thing to have.
so how do they go about, I don't know that this is the last slide. How do they go about certifying the attempt?
Yeah, so they use Strava, which I think is a pretty cool thing, just because everyone uses Strava. Or if you're not on Strava, you should get on Strava. So a lot of people use Strava. So yeah, it's a pretty accessible way you just upload your ride to Strava. And I would say for 99% of people that, the down to the foot doesn't necessarily matter. They just certify it through the Strava elevation, whatever it calculates. I think in most cases it uses your head units elevation gain. For my effort and some of the world record efforts, I think they go a step further, and they take that Strava elevation and then they compare it to like some topographical map to make sure that like your start point and your end point are like exactly accurate, which I think for mine it ended up changing it by like a few feet maybe. So, for 99% of the people, like, yeah, that doesn't matter at all. But yeah, when I ended up getting it by like 5 minutes. So a few feet every lap is going to kind of make a pretty big difference, times 52. So yeah, they kind of went the extra step in certifying the record. But yeah, for most people, they just use the Strava elevation.
Do you have any idea who may be going after your record?
Word on the street is Phil Guyman will be going for it pretty soon. I think he's been doing some posts about it. He's going above and beyond, so he's definitely has the fitness, the World Tour fitness. But yeah, he's got his little army of sponsors that could give him all light components. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if his bike is like 10 pounds lighter than mine. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be UCI legal, does it?
Yeah. So yeah, I think he found a climb, which is, I think it was a pretty similar gradient to mine and similar length out in Los Angeles. So yeah, we'll see. I think he's been gearing up for it all fall and all winter. I think it's finally nice weather out there in California now. So yeah, I think he's gonna be going for it pretty soon. I
wouldn't worry, Sean. This smog will get him.
Yeah, hopefully. Bring back the forest fires.
That's right.
The only good thing global warming has given us.
That's right. That was great.
Yeah.
That was.
Hey, Sean, I got a question for you. In the Virginia mountains, what was the elevation, say, at your starting point?
Good question. I would probably say like definitely less than 3,000 feet. I'd probably say like I was probably climbing from like 500 feet to like 1,000 feet. So yeah, definitely no altitude involved in it.
Okay.
Pretty close to sea level. I can probably look it up now. Oh yeah, 1,200 feet to 1,800 feet.
Okay.
So yeah, I think doing this challenge at altitude would, you always see like the track riders going to altitude just because there's less air resistance at altitude. So yeah, I guess in theory, your speed can be faster, but yeah, your power, I think for this competition is kind of overwhelming the speed factor just because you're going uphill for a lot of it.
Not for 7 hours.
Yeah. 7+ hours.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? You can unmute yourselves or put it in the chat.
No, amazing, and congratulations for the achievement. Really inspirational for all of us. So thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks.
So what's the next challenge?
Well, the reason I went for this Everesting the second time was really just peer pressure. My teammates kind of made me go for it because I was close the first time. So, I don't know. Hopefully, whoever takes it from me gets it by a substantial margin, so I don't feel peer pressured to have to go for it again. Either they get it by a lot or they miss it by a lot. So, yeah, I don't know. Kind of keeping flexible at this point. I think hopefully coronavirus is looking on the up and up, but yeah, I guess kind of who knows what racing will look like this year. Potentially racing towards the late summer, fall, but I mean, who really knows? So yeah, kind of keeping flexible. I think I'm definitely more motivated by the process of training than, races or results or anything. So yeah, kind of just keeping training. Recently started a job down in North Carolina, so been working, exploring some new roads, doing some big rides, and exploring is kind of what I love to do in cycling. So yeah, kind of keeping flexible, going with the flow.
There you
So
go.
has this achievement turned any heads on the World Tour teams or anything? Got any phone calls?
Uh, Definitely. I mean, there's been some people reaching out at the domestic level, but yeah, definitely not World Tour. I think I've gotten this question a lot, but yeah, it's definitely a misconception that, I think probably Jim can attest to this and my teammates. Yeah, I think this challenge is definitely suited towards me. I'm really good at going uphill and doing a tempo-paced effort. But, when it comes to a crit or anything high intensity, I'm definitely lacking in that department. So, I think, World Tour riders are probably a little more well-rounded than I am. So, yeah, definitely probably not at the World Tour level yet, but, if anyone's looking, I wouldn't say no.
So we have a question is, so now that you have the record, you don't have any desire to lower your own record or do it again?
No.
Are you sure you don't want to think about that? You answered that pretty quick.
I think that was the right answer.
To be honest, I think, potentially. I think in the winter, obviously, this was I did it in, I think it was October. So starting to get a little cold after that. And, I took a little time off the bike, kind of an off season afterwards. So, this winter I've kind of just been doing base miles. I definitely am, not in top shape right now. So yeah, maybe in the summertime, if the opportunity presents itself again and we don't have any more racing, yeah, potentially, maybe I might, give it a serious go this time, get maybe a light bike, chop off my handlebars,
Find a tailwind.
yeah.
Really good tailwind.
Oh, that's another key takeaway. If you can really work out the day that you go for it with a tailwind, that's a pretty big advantage, because, the tailwind is going to be the same thing the whole time. So, it's a little tricky to pick out the perfect climb and the perfect tailwind and the perfect day. So, yeah, if you can do that, props to you. Or just get a giant fan at the bottom and just blow up the climb.
Okay. Well, Sean, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Congratulations on the effort. That's pretty freaking awesome.
Thanks, Jim.
Absolutely.